Well, in August, a Harvard professor, Avi Loeb,
Yeah, I
said
know.
that he found metal in the Pacific Ocean that he claimed came from aliens.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's no question that there have been extraterrestrial encounters that go back for thousands of years, if not millions of years, on this planet. I have no doubt that there are artifacts that are under the ocean and other places that may exist. As to whether they're of extraterrestrial origin or not, again, I would have to see the data and the analysis on it. I know that there's a man I'm working with, or had worked with for years, out down there, the Redstone Arsenal in Alabama, Huntsville, who, when they would find such things, he would receive them. He was actually working for IT&T, but it was a contract from CIA to analyze exactly what Avi was talking about. And so I know people personally that I've been in his skiff, I've been in his lab. I know for a fact that there has been a program acquiring that kind of material for decades and studying them. And particularly if it's an intact object that looks like it has some technological function. This scientist, who is a physics and electromagnetic engineering genius that I've been working with, he would be asked to figure out how it worked, what it did, right? So yes, I mean, those sort of older artifacts exist. It's certainly not as dispositive or compelling to me as what's sitting right now under certain places like Dugway and Lawton, Oklahoma, and so-called Area 51, and these black sites near Edwards Air Force Base and other places where we have underground both man-made and extraterrestrial vehicles. ETVs is what they're called. By the way, no one uses the word alien. The bodies are called EBINs, extraterrestrial biological entities, is what we call them. So that is the fact. Now, it's not a bad avenue of exploration to try to find something that might be some debris in space or something that's been under the ocean for a long time. But I think what we really want to do is pivot towards the current operational systems and acquire those. Now, I don't know if the Congress, if you're aware of this, but the Senate passed, and it's pending in the House, although that's all tied up because of this impasse with the speakership, a bill that would basically give amnesty for 6 months to these big aerospace industries and individuals that we've named to come forward with the bodies, the craft, the material, or they would then, at that point, after 6 months, it's sort of an amnesty period, be subject to criminal prosecution. So I think that what we have to be prepared for, if in fact they do not capitulate and obey the law, they are going to need to have a law enforcement team stood up that has the capability to go to these sites and get them under control, legally, off, constitutional control. What I want to say to your listeners is that all projects, private, corporate, and governmental, dealing with this issue are illegal, unsanctioned, and unconstitutional. How do I know that? Because since 1993, I have briefed people like the CIA director and provided materials to sitting presidents and people on Senate intelligence and oversight committees for 30 years. And these are people who, if these programs were being run legally, they would know, because they're the people in the government constitutionally who are entitled to know. On the other hand, when they have made inquiries, they have been denied access or threatened. I know for a fact that there are members of Congress as well as members of the executive branch who, upon making inquiries, have been threatened. It happened to Bill Clinton. It happened to Jimmy Carter. It's happened to members of the House and the Senate that I know of personally from my briefings and involvement. So this is a intimidation tactic. And this is why I'm giving the message out. If you have worked in those projects, you think you signed a non-disclosure agreement that's binding. It isn't. The reason all non-disclosure agreements are vitiated and neutralized is because the underlying project that you worked in is illegal. Now, most people wouldn't know that. Let's say you're a 20, 30, 40-year-old guy working in a compartmented operation for the Skunk Works, Lockheed, or Northrop, or the military. You're just following orders, right? You don't know at the top that those projects are being run as a criminal operation, a RICO, and they are. And so until the US government accepts that hard fact that we can prove in a court of law, they're going to not be developing the correct strategies. About the only strategy they need to do now, because you heard at the hearing, you keep bringing up this hearing in July, where they talked about, and I talked to Congressman Burchett and Luna about this, going to Eglin Air Force Base. And gee, knock on the front door. Would you let us in and see the secret place here? Because they had heard there was, and there is. Well, they didn't know where it was. We do. They wouldn't know the name of it. My witnesses do. I have a guy who's been in it. You can't knock on the front door and say, pretty please let me in, to an unsanctioned, unconstitutional operation. This is like going to a mafia pizza parlor in New York and asking to be taken to the back room where they're laundering money or doing, whatever, some criminal operation. It ain't going to happen. So there's a certain naivete in the Congress and the White House that's got to stop, because they're going to keep getting gaslit and diverted until they accept the fact that there is something very wrong here, and it's something smells in Denmark here, and that it's an illegal operation. And you have to treat it as if it's an illegal operation, because it is. If you treat it as if it's just a compartmented secret operation, and somehow nobody you're talking to knows about it, that's the wrong approach. That other reason this is important, this is where Mr. Grush made a big error. He said, I can't talk about this here. I need to do it in a skiff. That's not true, because you are not bound by a national security oath and non-disclosure agreement, nor are any national security laws applicable if the project involved is itself unconstitutional. That is basic constitutional law. We've run this by many constitutional attorneys. What I just said is a fact. And so that is an error right there. Now, if you've come up through that system, you're very much indoctrinated to, if you signed a national security non-disclosure agreement and it says silent for 80 years, and some of them are 80 years, you're going to be very reluctant to go outside that because of what you've been threatened with, right? But from a legal point of view, there's no reason for anyone with information on this, including documents, material, parts of a craft, they could all disclose it. It cannot be regarded as a legal secret as long as the White House and the Congress are not allowed to oversee it. You can't have it both ways, And so you're either going to be within the bounds of the law or not. And if it's not, if we're going to accept the civilization dealing with something this important that is lawless and above the law, then we're back to the jungle.